Of all the innumerable yin-yang dualities that exist in nature, to me, none seems more astonishingly beautiful than the duality of gender, male and female. As far as I'm concerned, the genius of gender is the crowning achievement of the universe, whether you believe there's a personal author behind it or not. Gender is everything. That is to say, gender is life. Literally. The dance of the genders is the universe's chosen mechanism for the propagation of our species. And unless you're more of a death kind of guy, it's hard to think of anything that has a more legitimate claim to being objectively good than the gift of life. So then, how is it that at this point in the history of the West, the fount of all life, the gender dance, has become a rancorous brawl marked by rivalry, resentment, and mistrust? How did we arrive at such staggering statistics for divorce and broken homes? Why are so many millennials opting out of marriage and family altogether? Why does there seem to be less and less middle ground between radical feminists and men going their own way? Why can't men and women get along anymore? And why do so many not even care to try? The story of how we got here is long and winding, with more details than we can possibly cover in only a few minutes. But in brief, the singularly tumultuous 20th century dealt the nuclear family a series of blows unprecedented in nature and on a civilizational scale. In the wake of World War I, a perfect and relentless storm comprised of technological change, economic hardship, more wars, a sexual revolution, and new ubiquitous forms of media battered the sanctum of the family home and breached its walls. Cycles of dysfunction were set in motion that became inevitably worse with each successive generation. And while the complexities of 20th century history are nearly infinite, the present animosity that exists between the genders can be pretty much summed up in one word: wounds. The 20th century saw more families wounded more grievously in less time than any century before it. And as the saying goes, hurt people hurt people. There's no point anymore in trying to ascertain who has a legitimate grievance or not, because everybody's got one. Men and women have hurt each other so badly and failed each other so miserably in so many ways for so long that debating the comparative merits of every sordid claim would keep us mired in finger-pointing until the end of the world. And while there are clearly plenty of people who are fine with that, it's unbecoming of a real man to be content with such a wretched state of affairs. It's also unbecoming of a real man to ask women to lead the way out of the quagmire. The grim reality is that there's no quick fix for the sad state of affairs on a societal scale. But you already kind of knew that. So the real question is, for you, an individual man, is it worth it to do your part to improve things if it means swimming against the current, against the culture, and being kind of different from the guys around you? Like Captain America, when they thawed him out of the ice after 50 years. If your answer is yes, it's worth it, I'm a happy masochist who's cool with being out of step with the times. If that's you, then the principles you're going to need to live by are also going to have to be a little old-fashioned. But what the hey, you're already watching this channel, right? Also, be warned. In the short run, these principles are all a pain in the ass. They are uncomfortable, difficult, and the first one in particular is decidedly unfair to you. Still on board? Then here goes. The most essential old-fashioned notion that is needed to repair the rift between the genders is forgiveness. Nothing gets better until somebody resolves to accept his injuries but reject his right to recompense, whether in the form of justice or revenge. Listen to me, brother. We all have wounds. And a woman can hurt you in ways no man ever could. But the question is, are you going to allow those wounds to be an excuse to be permanently resentful towards 50% of the world's population? A lot of men do, and they set sail on an endless sea of bitterness. It doesn't have to be that way. But first, you will need to make up your mind not to pay your wounds forward. Then again, that's one of the defining traits of a real man, isn't it? The willingness to say, enough. The buck stops with me. The next principle may be even harder. Honestly owning up to your genuine mistakes and taking responsibility for the consequences. It's true that there are a few rare men out there who are absolute pillars of virtue, who through no fault of their own have been terribly betrayed by women. I've actually known a couple. But a guy who sleeps with a woman to whom he has no commitment, or who enters into marriage lightly, has no one to blame but himself when things go bad. That kind of guy doesn't actually have a woman problem. If you can't own up to the times you have failed to treat a woman like a person of infinite value, like what you are, then you really have no right to whine about how some harpy done you wrong. The last old-fashioned ingredient, and this really only applies to single guys, is to refrain from getting entangled with a woman who has no interest in a partner dance. If a woman has an axe to grind, if she's quick to argue, if she's all about girl power and feminism, run. You've got to evaluate women not only based on their hotness, but their character. Look down the road a bit. Read the writing on the wall. And if there aren't any women in your current circles worth committing to, be a man. Tell your little head that it's not the boss, and stay single. Loneliness is bad, but there are worse things. So, if there are any guys still watching this video, my main hope is to give you hope, despite the fact that there's no quick fix on a national level. It would be nice if that were possible, but repairing gender relations just is not the kind of thing that can be mandated from on high, regulated by the government. It's something that can only happen on the most personal level, from the inside out. Sure, you can always force people to act in compliance with gender equality laws and such by threatening them with punishment if they don't. But there's no legislation that could ever force men and women to love each other. And love, the personal decision to prioritize someone else's good over your own, is the only music to which the genders have ever been able to truly dance. I'm Marcus McGregor. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. If you'd like to subscribe, go for it. Just remember that you won't be shown new videos when they post unless you also click the notification bell.